Welcome to the Consumer Behavior Series, Buying, Having, and Being, Chapter 13, Subcultures. Let's get started. Learning objectives. Consumer identity derives from we as well as I. Our memberships in ethnic, racial, and religious subcultures often play a big role in guiding our consumption behaviors. Marketers increasingly use religious and spiritual themes when they talk to consumers. A traditional notion about families is outdated. Birds of a feather flock together in place-based subcultures. Maria, who is pictured in the slide, lives in Los Angeles, not Mexico City. More than 1 in 4 Californians are Hispanic, and overall the state has more non-white than white residents. Maria is an example of how people can build their self-identity on the basis of many subcultures. We will cover several of these in this chapter. Our group memberships within our society at large help to define us. A subculture is a group whose members share beliefs and common experiences that set them apart from others. We all belong to many subcultures depending upon our race, age, ethnic background, and place of residence. People who are part of a microculture freely identify with a lifestyle or aesthetic preference. Learning Objective 13.2. Our memberships in ethnic, racial, and religious subcultures often guide our consumption behaviors. An important subcultural difference is how abstract or literal a group is. Sociologists make a distinction between high contrast cultures and low context cultures. In a high context culture, group members are tightly knit and they infer meanings that go beyond the spoken word. Symbols and gestures are used instead of words to carry the weight of the message. In contrast, people in a low context culture are more literal. Acculturation is the process of movement and adaptation to one country's cultural environment by a person from another. Acculturation agents are the influences in our environment which affect the process of transitioning from one culture to another that contains components of both the old and new culture. These agents are family and friends, as well as organizations like churches and even the media. The agents may be from the culture of origin or from the culture of immigration. The progressive learning model. This model assumes that people gradually learn a new culture as they increasingly come into contact with it. When people acculturate, they will blend their original culture and the new one. Consumers who retain much of their original ethnic identity differ from those who assimilate. Some people feel uncomfortable with the notion that marketers should explicitly take into account people's racial and ethnic differences when they formulate strategies. Still, we must because ethnicity affects consumer behaviors. Targeting using such characteristics can be challenging. It's not always easy to define members of a distinct group, and in our society, many people are members of multiple groups. Products that companies market for one ethnic group sometimes gain appeal with others outside the subculture. This is known as de-ethnicization. African Americans represent a significant racial subculture, making up about 12.3% of the U.S. population in the last census. Although African Americans differ in some important ways, they may not be very different from white consumers. With a few exceptions, both groups have the same overall spending patterns. They allocate about 2/3 of their incomes to housing, transportation, and food. Hispanic is an umbrella term that describes people of many different backgrounds. About 60% are from Mexico, with the next largest group from Puerto Rico making up less than 10%. The phrase Hispanic also captures Central Americans, Dominicans, South Americans, and Cubans. The segment is relatively easy to find, with more than 50% living in the major metro areas of LA, New York, Miami, San Antonio, San Francisco, and Chicago. As this slide shows, Hispanic Americans differ substantially from Anglo consumers. This slide reveals many of the distinguishing characteristics of Asian Americans. This group has a great deal of marketing potential, but it's difficult to target. This is because it is made up of many culturally diverse subgroups that use different languages and dialects. The term Asian refers to 20 ethnic groups. For reflection, identify some of the subcultures to which you belong. How do you identify with these subcultures? For reflection, though the big three are attractive segments for marketers to reach, why might they be difficult to approach? For reflection, identify products which have been de-ethnicized. How should these products be marketed now? Hispanic Americans differ substantially from Anglo consumers. Learning Objective 12.3. Marketers increasingly use religious and spiritual themes when they talk to consumers. Marketers once avoided religious references, but this is changing. Still, marketers have not extensively studied religious influences on consumer behavior. Religious subcultures have an impact on consumer variables such as personality, attitudes towards sexuality, birth rates, and household formation, income, and political attitudes. Church leaders may encourage or discourage consumption of some products. Even churches themselves are being marketed. For instance, megachurches actively market themselves to individuals who are born again or seeking a different sense of worship. Importantly, Muslims will be more than 25% of the Earth's population by 2030. Marketing to Muslims will require a special attentiveness to religious influences. Ethnicity matters when it comes to marketing, whether in a single country or for brands operating globally. For instance, McDonald's has tailored its menu in different parts of the U.S. and the world to meet the needs of ethnic subcultures. For reflection, think of an example of a product that is marketed based on religious consumption. For reflection, should members of a religious group adapt marketing techniques that manufacturers customarily use to increase market share for their products? Why or why not? Learning Objective 13.4. Our traditional notions about families are outdated. Our age is a big part of our identity. We are more likely to have things in common with people close to our age. An age cohort consists of people of similar ages who have similar experiences. They share many common memories about cultural heroes, important historical events, and so on. The extended family used to be the most common family unit. It consists of 3 generations who live together. It often included grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Like the Cleavers from Leave It to Beaver and other TV families of the 1950s, the nuclear family, a mother, father, and 1 or more kids, largely replaced the extended family, at least in U.S. society. The percentage of women of childbearing age who define themselves as voluntarily childless is also on the rise. Dinks, meaning double income, no kids, those type of couples are better educated on average than are 2-income couples with children. Children are more likely to live at home after graduating from college rather than taking their own places, and they are called boomerang kids. You throw them out and they keep coming back. Some label middle-aged people the sandwich generation because they must support both the generation above them and the one below them. Many factors affect what a family spends, including the number of people in the family, their age, and whether 1, 2, or 3 or more adults work outside the home. 2 especially important factors that determine how a couple spends time and money are whether they have children and whether the woman works. The family life cycle concept enables marketers to segment households. Researchers over the years have proposed several models to describe family lifestyle changes, but with limited effect because most failed to take into account trends like the changing role of women, childless and delayed child marriages, alternative family styles, and single-parent households. Four variables are used to describe the changes of family over time: age, marital status, whether children are in the home, and the ages of children in the home. We also have to consider any couple as a household, whether or not they have a traditional husband and wife. For reflection, for the following products, discuss how having children or not might affect the choices a couple makes. What do such variations mean for marketers in terms of groceries, cars, and vacations? Although there's a general consensus on how analysts describe age cohorts, the exact labels and cutoff dates vary. These are some approximations for the primary categories. The interbellum generation describes those who were born at the beginning of the 20th century. The silent generation describes those who were born between the world wars. The war baby generation was born during World War II. The baby boom generation was born between 1946 and 1964. Generation X was born between 1965 and 1985. And Generation Y was born between 1986 and 2002. Generation Z was born 2003 and later. Teenagers in every culture grapple with fundamental development issues when they transition from childhood to adult. Throughout history, young people have coped with insecurity, parental authority, and peer pressure. The Saatchi and Saatchi Advertising Agency identified four basic conflicts that are common to all teens. These are listed on the slide and described here. Autonomy versus belonging means that teens want to acquire independence so they can break away from their families. But at the same time, they want to attach themselves as a support structure. Rebellion versus conformity grasps that teens need to rebel against social standards of appearance and behavior, but they need to fit in. Idealism versus pragmatism means that they tend to view adults as hypocrites, whether they see themselves as sincere. Narcissism versus intimacy means that they tend to obsess about their appearance and needs. However, they also feel the desire to connect. Getting to know Generation Z. This generation was born in the late 1990s to early 2000s. They are the most diverse generation, and they're digital natives. Generation Y also goes by the labels of millennials and echo boomers. They were born between 1984 and 2002. They may grow up in non-traditional families. Members of Generation Y are jugglers who value being footloose and connected to their peeps. Saatchi and Saatchi label this new kind of lifestyle connexity. These millennials are the first generation to grow up with computers at home. They are multitaskers. They truly are digital natives. They use texting and video and create user-generated content. Our age is a big part of our identity. We are more likely to have things in common with people that are close to our age. An age cohort consists of people of similar ages who have similar experiences. They share many common memories about cultural heroes, important events, and so on. Generation X got a bad rep unfairly. Originally they were called slackers and baby busters, but since they've grown up, they've become responsible for many culture-changing products like Google, YouTube, and Amazon. The baby boomer cohort consists of people whose parents established families following the end of World War II and during the 1950s when the peacetime economy was strong and stable. In addition to the direct demand for products and services this group creates, these consumers have also fostered a new baby boom of their own to keep marketers busy in the future. Because it wasn't as big as the first, we call it a baby boomlet. For reflection, what will happen in the markets for products like Restylane as the baby boomers continue to age? Perceived age is how old a person feels and is a better yardstick of age than how old a person is biologically. Researchers measure age by feel age, how old does somebody feel, and look age, how old do they look. Marketers may need to emphasize product benefits rather than age appropriateness in marketing campaigns for older adults because the older they get, the younger they feel relative to their actual age. It is important for marketers to understand the psyche of older people. Researchers point to a set of key values relevant to mature consumers. These include autonomy, connectedness, and altruism. For reflection, is it practical to assume that people 60 and over constitute one large consumer market, one that's known as the gray market? How can marketers segment this age subculture? This age-old saying is the perfect motto for place-based subcultures. A place-based subculture means that people tend to be like those who live in the same areas, types of homes, and types of neighborhoods. They share common consumption patterns and common socioeconomic characteristics. Marketers use systems like Nielsen's Prism to identify the clusters of people who are grouped by zip code. For reflection, if you were a marketing researcher assigned to a study, what products are cool and how would you do it? How has the generation of what is cool changed as the generations have changed? Chapter summary. Consumer identity derives from we as well as I. Our memberships in ethnic, racial, and religious subcultures play a big role in guiding our consumption behaviors. Marketers increasingly use religious and spiritual themes when they talk about consumers. Our traditional notions about families are definitely outdated. Birds of a feather flock together in place-based subcultures. Thanks for watching. Please check out the other videos in this consumer behavior series. Thanks again.